Okay, and we are recording. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining another technical call for the MicroProfile project. So today we have an agenda item which is going to cover MicroProfile 4.1, which is one of the things we're working right now. We want to go for MicroProfile 5 as well to see the status about it. And also discuss some of the new spec process, especially because there's been some discussions around the mailing list about a couple of new projects that are part of the technical goals for 2021. And then there is one little thing about YSGI that I would like to bring up, but let's go with MicroProfile 4.1 first. So Edwin, are you here?
And sorry, are you going to share the notes on the screen?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me share. There you go. But I think Edwin is not here, right?
Maybe you want to share just that window, by the way, so it's a little smaller.
I don't hear you. What?
Oh, we want smaller? I just increased the size. Is that okay?
No, I mean you're sharing your full desktop, which is pretty wide. So if you share just that window with Zoom, it'll work out better.
That works better with YouTube, by the way, as well.
Let me try. How's that?
Wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, I have a wide screen, so it might become a little bit tricky. Okay, so I guess Edwin is not here. Not sure if he's going to come, but I do have something that I can share. I was discussing with Scott Marlowe about how the Jakarta release happening, and this kind of ties up on the discussion we had about having the platform release and a compatible implementation ready to be able to do 4.1. And maybe, I'm not sure if that was the case for other people in the call, but my impression was that we have to have the 4.1 release APIs to be able to have the compatible implementation ready. But it seems that Scott, for Jakarta, and maybe you have some other Jakarta people here so they can confirm, because all the other APIs are already approved, right? And the platform is just like a joint of all the other APIs that were already approved. Then you don't really require to have a 4.1 release of the API for the compatible implementation. So meaning that a compatible implementation should be able to just make a release of all with the individual APIs, and that should be enough for the platform release. At least that's what he explained me on the Jakarta side of the fence. I'm not sure if that's okay for the MicroProfile side, or for anyone in Jakarta can confirm that is the case.
So how it works is that there are actually signature tests, and so if they're all in, you just have to pass the signature test. The signature tests don't care if you've got the APIs in 1 jar, or 20 jars, or 7 jars, or on modules in the class path. They just check to make sure that you have the right API signatures. So that's how it works over there. We don't have signature tests over on our side of the fence.
No, we don't.
I don't know that we're even doing anything to verify the signatures.
We don't have any on the platform 4.1. We don't have anything, right? So we only have things on individual stuff.
Yeah. So ultimately, you just need to pass the TCK test. Whether you're doing that with 10 jars or 50 jars or 1 jar, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm trying to do for Open Liberty beta. So basically, it's we have all the APIs delivered to the beta, including the MicroProfile Health 3.1. So that's all checked into beta. So basically it's this weekend we'll get all the TCKs run. And on the 9th of July, the beta will be out. So that's been talking to Edwin, and that's a date we can create a CCR. I think Edwin has joined.
Yeah, I'm here, so I'm late, but it's busy. Yeah, so that's right, Emily. We are in contact to release the final MP 4.1 whenever you can confirm that the CCR of the no, not the CCR. After that, we can create the CCR. After you have confirmed that the Open Liberty includes the health 3.1 changes.
Yeah. So basically, it's
when are you saying that you're gonna have the release?
9th of July. So basically next week.
No, that's oh, yes, okay.
Is that confirmed or is just like a tentative date?
No, it's a release date. It's
Okay.
not tentative. It's a
No, just asking.
Yeah, it's will be yeah, it's in plan. Unless something dramatically things happen. That's a planned date.
So are we going to release MP 4.1 before that or after that?
I think on the same day would be fine. So it's kind of this weekend. So basically, it's before it's made to public, and then we, I mean, the build all goes through, and then we just like get all the TCK result out on the day it went on public, and everything should be in place. So that's a hope. So it's anyway, pushing the ballot 4.1 is quite straightforward. I think it's can happen on the same day.
Yeah, so
start a ballot.
Notify me whenever that is happening, and then I can continue with the release on.
Well, Edwin, I think that on the for the platform stuff, you can release it at any time, right?
Yeah, yes, you can release anytime. However, you won't be able to start a ballot anyway.
Sure.
So,
so what we're saying is that, for instance, we can say here on final release, we can say at any time.
Yeah, you can.
Right.
You can do at any time.
And then for the release of the ballot, it will be either on 9 July or after.
Yeah.
Depending on how the Liberty release goes through, but that will be the timeline for all these free little tasks.
Yeah. So the reason I'm saying is around like 9th of July is because if you release now and you put on the stage, but you can't start a ballot, and then you could have the more risk. I mean, to have that deleted, the release deleted, because you can't start a ballot. Technically, yes.
Well, Sonotype they increases the staging time, but let's just say do the final release by 8th of July.
Yeah, that's fine. Closer to that date will be fine.
Yeah, so not after the release of Liberty.
Sorry?
Before. So we are going to release MP 4.1 not after the Liberty release, but before that.
Well, you can. I mean, at any time you can either do it before or after.
I know.
Right?
But...
Yeah.
So basically, if you do it before, then you only have to open the ballot once you have Liberty to put over there. If you do it after, then you have to wait for Liberty and do the ballot and do the release at the same time. So it's either your choice. You either like split the work, or you just do the same all the work at the same time.
Yeah, I as I say, I will keep in contact with Emily, and we will do our thing, right? Then.
Yeah, it's quite a small thing. And then the other thing, it's just like do a Jenkins build and then create an issue. Okay, anyway, I will work with you, Edwin, and as I said, before the 9th of July, I will be able to get the a candidate already internally if something happened, or if it's kind of something happened, or or is it kind of everything goes well and then we could do earlier, and so that's fine.
But so Liberty is going to release compatible with MP4.1, but it has not been released yet, and it can take
Yes.
several weeks because we have to wait for the release review approval from EMO, which only can I can ask for the next possible date after we have sent out the release review ballot on the mailing list.
Oh yeah, it's a good point. And I think you can start doing email first. The only thing you can't do the ballot. So it's the PMC won't give you the approval until the ballot has gone through. But for email, you can. However, like just can prepare the release plan, etc.
Yeah, that's been prepared, but they need the artifacts from the final release as part of their review. So that's kind of a chicken egg situation.
Right. Maybe in this case, maybe we kind of start earlier. Maybe it's kind of start a few days earlier. Maybe it's kind of in July, beginning of July. So we started but EMO is pretty easier, pretty quick. It will give you the like a +1 straight away. The only thing takes time is PMC.
What artifacts do we need to stage aside from the specification?
The specification, the for advanced artifact.
Yeah, what other artifacts other than the specification?
None.
Nothing.
Is the POM count as an artifact as well?
Yeah, just a poem.
But I guess
Yeah,
no
so-
one really uses that POM anyway.
Oh, the poem, I think customer use it for that like dependencies, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it's-
can
it's a
stage
major
the
artifact.
POM. We
Yeah.
can stage the POM. It's if we have, if something happens to that, if we could just restage it.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a binary with a bunch of different, it's not like it's a jar with code in it.
Yep. I
Yeah.
thought, but don't we also stage the API in TCK?
For
No, because
platform?
platform we don't
Yeah.
have a TCK.
Yeah, there's a notice.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was. If it was a normal spec, then I would, recommend caution. But since it's really just a spec in the POM, we
Yep.
can get that going for the EMO to review.
Yeah,
so
maybe
that's,
maybe it's start the process this week, and then I think
Well,
with
the
that
POM we still don't want the POM to time out, so we do need to start with the. Well, maybe they could. I mean, it's 30 days. We got 30 days.
Yeah,
for the
30
POM, so-
days. So it's 4 weeks. So it's we have basically the 9th of July. Maybe it's a couple of days. If we say what is that? When is the calendar? Maybe it's kind of the early next week. So get things prepared, start a stage out. So we still can achieve within 4 weeks.
yeah, it's the same for
One day.
that.
Yeah,
Oh, I mean, the like David was saying, even if that times out for some reason, it shouldn't be an issue to retrieve the same things from the tag from GitHub, because there is no binaries involved. So there is no discussion about, hey, you're doing a build from the same code, but it's not exactly the same binary, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly. We can only push to Maven Central after every approval. So every time before that, we can run a new build.
Yeah, but the POM itself doesn't change because there is no build involved in the POM. So when you do the first release to Maven Central or staging, you get a tag on GitHub, right?
Yeah.
So the file is exactly the same because there is no build involved.
Correct.
If we roll on Monday or something, there's plenty of time.
yeah. I think on the 5th of July, change to on the 5th of July, which is Monday.
Right.
And
Like
then-
the US people are going to be on vacation probably, but Edwin, you don't celebrate US Independence Day too much, do you?
No, I was just starting this year, Dave.
Okay.
No, I'm on vacation in August, so I have. Yeah, if I can, yeah, if we can
Okay.
get this all done in July, that would be nice. Okay, so 5th of July, I will run the releases and then get back to you.
Yeah,
Just
sounds
one
good.
day. Cool.
Okay.
Okay, so are we happy with the status of 4.1, or is there anything else that someone wants to clarify?
I'm happy with the plan.
Oh, further one is clear, but I would like to revisit what we were talking for further releases. Basically, if there is no TCK for the platform, why do we need CCR for the platform?
Oh, you need to prove all, because this is a kind of 4.1 included these 8 specifications. You need to prove and the runtime able to pass all of these 8 TCKs.
Well, this is exactly what I don't understand, because if you have CCRs for each 8 individual specifications to be released, then you can write a simple wrapper that will integrate all of that implementations that were used for the CCRs to pass the
No,
platform.
right, not necessarily, because you could use a different runtime for the CCR. Normally you use a small right?
Yeah, sure, but potentially, in theory.
Yeah, it's however, it's kind of you need one runtime be able to show actually you passed all of these TCKs. It's not collectively you say, okay, small right config passed this config the TCK, and then Open Liberty passed the rest of the client TCK. You can't really join an effort to claim okay, passed all the TCKs. Since MicroProfile 4.1 combined all these 8 TCKs, you need to prove actually is a runtime is able to do that. Otherwise, we collectively say, oh, we work together to pass all the TCKs, but maybe it's no one runtime is able to pass all of these 8 TCKs. So that's why you need to collectively.
Putting it all together, for me at least, CCR means that the TCK is passable, basically. That there is a way to pass the TCK, and it doesn't matter which implementation is used for that. So that means that basically for the platform, you will just rerun the individual CCRs again, basically for all together.
Well, technically, you should run them. You should run the TCKs on the thing that. So look, let's be simple. If you have 5 components, small right this, small right that, whatever, they're individually passing the component specs. But then you take all those jars and you wrap them up into Quarkus. You need to pass all those tests again on Quarkus, because there's
Be
no
platform
guarantee that, there's no for the platform vote, because there's no guarantee that if you just take all these things and stick them in a box, they still work. There's no conflicts. You just need to run them again on the actual aggregate product. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can understand the point, but it's kind of, if we are just having health upgrade right now and we need to rerun it integrated in some runtime, it just seems very redundant to me.
It is redundant on purpose. I mean, it's a check to make sure that when you throw all these things in the box and you say that that thing is 4.1 compliant, it passes all the tests associated with 4.1 on that aggregate box, right? So,
because if you say on spec A that it needs to be black and on spec B it needs to be white, then it's perfectly to pass spec A or B, but not together.
Yeah. And the other thing is like a health 3.1, maybe is a kind of conflict with the metrics, and then with running, just to make sure they all work together.
Well, or maybe they didn't actually do the integration work correctly.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
well, actually, it seems that we should be able to catch these kind of issues before we will make a CCR for the platform. But yeah, I get the point. Don't waste more time on it. Thanks.
Okay, so I guess we're fine with the 4.1 release then. Okay, so we can move to the 5.0 stuff. So Emily, do you want to tell us something about this?
Yeah, so it's in the 5.0, I did a prototype with MicroProfile config. So I released this is aligned with the Jakarta E 9.1, and I did a release candidate. And then I changed the updated SmallRye config, which is one of the implementation for my MicroProfile config, and did a few PRs for the kind of SmallRye or the parent and etc. So it's didn't spend much time. I got SmallRye config passed the TCK together with passed all of the existing tests. So that looks quite good. As I said, it's a kind of it's a minimal effort. And then I also wrote this instruction. Roberto, can you click on the instructions? So basically, is I detailed the steps for other specs to follow. So is what to do, especially it's a strongly advocate or the other component to use MicroProfile parent 2.1 because that has all of the Jakarta E 9.1 dependencies. And then also I detailed the instruction on how to do the kind of Jakarta EE alignment and etc. So is the other spec can go ahead to do the work. And also if it's kind of the implementation on the SmallRye, so hopefully what have done the PR on SmallRye will further help that. So Roberto, I will work with you offline to see how to release the kind of the SmallRye relevant components.
Sure, I'll have a look into that later.
Yeah. So the other thing we discussed last time regarding the creating branches and etc. So basically, is for this MicroProfile 5.0, we're trying to just include mainly the namespace change, like a Jakarta namespace change. So it's a no functional change. So with that, like after this work has been done and some other spec might want to do the functional change, they might have to create like a branch, or maybe push the Jakarta namespace change into a separate branch and keep working on master for another release. So basically the MicroProfile 5.0 is intended to be just like a namespace change to keep it simple. So are there any other comments and thoughts or something like that?
Yeah, I think we need to, on this particular piece, we need to be very strict about this. Just basically define how this should be handled. So just to make sure that every single project follows the exact same thing, and we don't have like people like having like a branch with Jakarta and then pushing all the things over there, or also some others have some other branch and then some other people. So you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Especially because I mean, I know that we have some people that usually work on a single spec, but then we have some other people that have to do the work on multiple specs. And it's quite annoying when you're moving to another project that they have like that they're using different semantics or different namings or different things. So my suggestion is just, I can write this a little bit better. My suggestion for this is just to make sure that it follows an exact rule and that rule needs to be followed by all the specifications, right?
Yeah, you need to, put a message on the Google group. I'm not sure how to reach out. I don't know how the spec will read the minutes, or how can we place them. Is that better to read the issue on the spec saying, or maybe that's better. So basically read the issue to the Jakarta E 9.1 alignment and then prepare for 5.0 release. And then document this is alignment in the master only namespace change.
Well, we can create an issue on every project and then put in the rules over there. That will be fine.
Yeah, that's that match.
Okay, can you also put the links to these issues here, Emily, so that we have an overview, and that would be a nice.
Oh yeah, good idea. Okay.
You can create like an aggregator issue on the parent
Yes.
project, and then
Put a
just
link there. Yeah.
and just link all the spec issues over there.
Yeah, I like the idea. And it's thought the similar thing. Yes. Okay. I've been thinking how to reach out and make sure they hear this. Okay.
So Emily, you know, this doc is good because it has all the repeatable things that need to be done. I can't think of an example, but are we going to have some type of re-review of the specification, just to validate that there aren't other references to Java X in the description or the JCP process, or I know it's not JCP, but the old MP process, just to make sure that everything reads correctly.
Yeah.
So I think there are like two options over there. So one is that naturally happens on doing the review of the PR that's being open to do the rename. And second, you're still gonna have to do a release with a ballot, right? So everyone's gonna still have to review the specs and the docs and the APIs, right?
Right. But you do want to make sure that that's all done before you submit for ballot. That's all that I mean. So
yeah, so I'm guessing that ends up then on the PR review that gets submitted. Now,
okay.
Of course, you can only review what's be on the PR, right? So there might be pieces that were not changes that don't show on the PR, right? So on those situations, there's not much you can do unless someone will do the work of having to go for all the files and read them to make sure that nothing was forgotten, right?
Yeah, but yeah, that's doing a sanity check. But yeah, I think we know now. We know this. We need to keep in mind that we do a
that's
extra
where
check for all that. Yeah.
What I was thinking, I mean, if we're going to be creating separate issues for all these specs as far as the work that needs to be done, just having a little check, another item on the checklist to say, to read your spec or whatever you want to call it. But, just something as a reminder to the teams that are doing the work.
Sure,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
we can put here as a bullet here.
Yeah, good idea. I like that idea. So basically it's especially I think for the reviewer, because this is pretty much I will say is all kind of a blankly replacement for the reviewer. You need to check all the spec and
Yeah, you cannot
for the
just
Java
think
doc,
that.
everything.
Yeah, if the review the changes in the PR look good, still check out the branch and
Yeah.
so find the files yourself. Any reference that may be struggling. Just as simple as that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Thanks.
Okay. So are we Are we done with MicroProfile 5 then? Do we have any other questions about this?
I think we just need to make like a kick off the action. So it's the other spec need to follow the suit. Maybe in the next call, we need to call out all the other spec to for them to like tell their progress with it.
Well, we don't have anything like a spec lead, right? Because we never had those. We somehow as these spec coordinators, right? There's usually
Yeah.
some person that is taking over, or it takes over that role, even though it's not really a directly assigned role. It's just more like a role that
Volunteer.
other people. Sorry.
Just volunteer.
Yeah.
Administrator.
So I guess that we need to reach out to those people for all the other specs and make them aware about it. The only one thing that I guess that we don't have here, or we don't. I mean, I guess it's not really an issue, but so far we only be talking about things that are in the platform, right? But there's still a few specs that are outside the platform.
Yes, they need to do the same thing.
And we need to handle those as well.
Yes, good point. And then we start with the 5.0, but at the same time, other standalone projects need to do the same thing. Otherwise, they can't work with the 5.0. I know Nathan is on the call, like a context propagation, and also the reactive specs, GraphQL, RI.
Okay. Okay, let's work on these things over here. I guess that we can create the GitHub issues, just don't take too much time. And then we can even mention the person that we know that be most active on that spec. And let's see what happens.
Yeah. When I create that issue, we'll also, I think I will post it to the standalone spec as well to tease them out. Okay.
Okay, is there anything else about the MicroProfile 5 work that anyone wants to bring up? Okay, if not, let's move on. Next topic is about the MicroProfile spec process. I'm guessing that this topic was added over here about some discussion, especially with gRPC stuff going on the mailing list. And if people on the call are not aware, so there's been this mailing thread about starting some work on gRPC, and most people suggested, or at least I was one of the person that suggested to start that work on the sandbox in the same way that we discussed it a couple of weeks ago about OpenTelemetry. But it seems that the process or some people don't really know the process too much about starting something on the sandbox. So I'm guessing that this is about for us to discuss this a little more, and especially to see if on the new working group umbrella, if this needs to be changes or if it needs to be adjusted in some way. Any comments about this?
Yes. So I think you're talking about my comments mainly.
Yes, I mean not only about yours, but I mean some other people.
Let me explain my position here.
Sure.
Right. So I'm okay with sandbox. Right. So what I was trying to say that because we are working group now, we need to have the process defined and ratified. Right. So sandbox is okay. We can ratify sandbox. I don't have problems with it, but it has to be agreed, right? So process is not written currently, and people just don't know what to do, right? So when we have process, we just follow it, and that's it, right? And I think that for the process, this meeting is not suitable. It has to be decided on the steering committee level, right? Or maybe on spec committee level. Possibly spec committee level is good enough, but we may suggest some rules. So if we think that sandbox is right, then this is okay, but it has to be discussed and agreed, right? I looked at the rules which you have on the wiki page. I think someone, Emily, possibly posted to the mailing list. It looks okay. One thing I don't like there is if someone well known in the MicroProfile community, well known is not really strong definition, posts some suggestion to a sandbox, it can be agreed by the lazy consensus. It sounds like if someone well-known in the MicroProfile community submits something, it can become a spec without any review, which is bad in my perspective. Maybe my understanding is wrong. So in this case, just correct me if I'm wrong.
You can work on stuff in the sandbox, but it doesn't get released.
Yes. So I think this is a kind of the like for someone like work on MicroProfile for a long time is kind of understand the sandbox. Sandbox is just like a playground, and then like you mentioned what's the next step. So basically, the next step is a graduate from sandbox and become a spec. So actually, Kevin and I had a quick chat on this. Kevin also mentioned earlier, like since we have a working group, maybe we could formalize it even better. Like I say, okay, demonstrate your idea in the sandbox, and then go through the kind of the go through the working group vote. Like say, are we okay with this with the kind of the idea and etc. And then it's the kind of the if it goes through the ballot, yeah, that's a new spec.
From my perspective, the start of spec is actually defining its goals and non-goals.
Right.
So how you will do it in the sandbox?
You don't need to do that.
Yeah.
The sandbox literally is, I wake up this morning, I have an idea, I want to start working on it. I'm going to start submitting PRs to the sandbox. You can't release any of that code.
No, I understand.
You know
that.
what I mean?
But
so
you're kind of...
it's intentionally zero bar, right? So anything that let's add process on is like antithetical to the concept of the sandbox. Now, where it says step 1, request a repository, that's something we probably need to adjust, because step 1, if you really want to graduate from the sandbox, is you got to, make a project plan. You got to say what your goals are, all the things that you talk about. That would be step 1.
Yeah, that's the step 1, because a sandbox, good, but you are kind of jumping to the API level directly.
You're jumping as far as you can go with your idea, but you won't be able to release it, and it isn't an official spec.
So you are saying that you play with it on the sandbox, and after that, when you go to the official review, which is going to be presented to the spec committee, you actually need to write some goals and non-goals.
That should be in your plan review, the creation.
Yes. Step 1 would be a creation review now.
Yeah.
Yes.
But step 0 would be the same, but step 1 would now be a creation review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, it sounds good. So it means that we need someone to actually write it down, and we'll discuss it.
Yeah. So, and I agree with you, Dimitri, because what we need to do is we kind of, we have the EFSP, and that outlines the different things that are required as you're moving from one phase to another. But that, really the EFSP is assuming that it's one specification per project. I mean, there's some exceptions, but it's pretty much written that way. So like even the creation review is supposed to be for a specification project. Well, we only have one MicroProfile project, so we could kind of modify that and say, well, the creation review is for the creation of a new specification repository. And so mapping the EFSP to how we're processing within a single project, I think that's what is needed here.
Yeah,
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 I
it sounds
would agree with
good
that.
to me. I would agree with that
Sounds
too.
good. Yes.
So we just need to kind of, do we need to go through the working group and standardize the process, or we just say, okay, this is fine tune. We just formally document on this, the new process. So what's next?
Yes. Then an agenda topic, the next steering committee meeting, maybe.
Someone, possibly from the steering committee, but some people are here and there anyway, needs to volunteer and write down the proposal for creating a new spec process. It should, as Kevin was saying and everybody agreed, mimic their Eclipse specification process to the MicroProfile realities, right? And we'll discuss it, we'll ratify it, we have it written, we're done.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I will.
Okay,
I will.
but anyway, that doesn't stop you to start anything on the sandbox right now, right? So you can go over there, and if anyone wants to do some work on gRPC and OpenTelemetry, just go over there and start doing some work. And
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
when's
step
the-
0 would just to recap. Step 0 would remain the same, and step 1 through 4 go away because that's the specification process.
Yeah. I will volunteer to start kind of the the process, list a few things and then add to the, I don't know when the next steering committee meeting. John, when the next steering committee meeting?
13th of July.
Or 14th July.
13th.
Oh, 13th July. Thank you. Okay. I will
Glad I could help.
propose. Okay, cool. Thank you,
That was a
John.
joke.
Okay, that's the one agenda. Yeah, item on the steering committee. Cool. I will prepare something. I mean, like put on the Google group so people can start to collaborate, and then we can bring to the working group.
It doesn't really need to be on a call. We can just vote on the list, right? So
Yep.
Oh yeah, that's even better.
our next actual call is next quarter,
Okay. Oh, I see.
right?
Okay.
So
In
we
this
just
case,
we just
sorry,
discuss, put up our proposal. You know, discuss, put a proposal, get some good feels, and then we'll put it up for a vote.
Okay. In this case, I will start an email thread and start a conversation, and then we can put up for a vote.
Thanks for volunteering, Emily.
No problem, because this is something bothering me as well.
Yeah, and it is a good idea. I mean, from the experiences that I've been having, to kind of send out the heads up about the vote, to your
Right.
point, and get the feedback before we actually vote on something, because even if it's a meeting minutes, because then I found myself where people want to modify the minutes after I've started the vote, and it's like kind of a learning lesson, right? A learning point. So just a heads up.
Yeah. Get the feedback first, and then, you know, and if no one says anything objectionable, then you start a vote. If they say something objectionable at that point, you can point them at the discussion thread where you said, I'm going to start a vote. Why didn't you give your feedback then?
Yeah, it's oh yeah, exactly. Not everybody on the call from the working group. It's good to discuss first and then get all the feedback, and then that's pretty much kind of taking everybody's view into the process, and then we put up for the view. Yeah, sounds good. Thanks. So by the way, Roberto, maybe you can go to your issue first, and then the other one is pretty much long-winded.
Okay. So this is not about this particular issue. I can open it up right here, just as an example. It's just something that I just cut up. I mean, it's been here for a while, but I only actually got bitten by it in the last couple of weeks, which is we are including APIs in our API from OSGI, right? So for instance, we have these imports of OSGI and we're using OSGI annotations on our MicroProfile APIs, which I think that is not the right thing to do. In my understanding, I believe that our API should be pristine and it shouldn't be including any OSGI stuff, right? At least this is my opinion. I mean, OSGI is just like a runtime like any other. Of course, it has its own merits and its own specific things, but no one expects to find any Spring annotations here or any Quarkus annotations here, right? So why are we including OSGI annotations? I understand why the technical case, but I'm not talking about the technical case here. What I'm bringing over right now to discuss on technical call is it acceptable for us to include any OSGI annotations on our actual APIs?
I think it's kind of two things. So I know this has been like reopened many APIs on all of the kind of the many of the specifications. I think also discussed on the mailing list, etc. So he's keen to get MicroProfile config into OSGI. So the other thing is kind of this is directly the annotation is kind of the is pretty much is even if like some runtime doesn't support this annotation, so it doesn't matter much because this is the annotation. So with this API, it should continue to work with any runtime. So he's trying to move like a MicroProfile into OSGI world. So that's
well, then I ask you something. If I have my own runtime and can I put whatever annotation over there? That's not gonna that not other runtime's gonna care about it. So in the end, we can have like Spring annotations, Quarkus annotations, Liberty annotations here, and you know what I mean. So why are we allowing OSGI annotations? And if we allow OSGI annotations, can we put any other annotations from any other runtimes over here? Even if they're ignored by the other runtimes, and even if we don't care about them,
but there's a use case for this. So there's a kind of the reason is kind of they want
don't I mean I don't want to focus on the use case for the OSGI annotations, all right, because you're always going to find the use case for any other annotations for any other runtimes. What I'm asking over here is, are we fine to include OSGI annotations? And if we are, then are we going to be able to include any other annotations from other runtimes if we find use case for them? And even I can even add another question, which is, so Emily, I knew that you were working to push MicroProfile config into Jakarta. So for instance, will if for some reason Jakarta would like to adopt MicroProfile config, will they be happy to actually ask to include OSGI annotations in their APIs as well? Because as far as I know, I never seen any Jakarta API with OSGI things inside.
So that depends like how the kind of the group will feel. Depends whether like OSGI kind of can justify they want to get a Jakarta to be OSGI friendly. I think this one, if you have a look, I think it's a very long conversation on etc.
But again, you're focusing too much on the use case. I'm not focusing on the use case. I'm just focusing about opening the door to allow other annotations of other runtimes to be added to the API. That's my point. It's not about the use case. I'm not discussing the merits of the use case. I read the PR and I understand. But I can come up with merits for other annotations from other runtimes and add them. Is that okay?
Before, would you consider OSGI a runtime, or isn't OSGI a spec and there are implementations that are runtimes? So it's more a reference to another spec.
Well, then you can.
That's a spec level decision we have to make, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's not about if you allow OSGI, then you can put in Open Liberty and other runtimes. It's more, can I?
Sure, but if
bring in
Open
other
Liberty
specs?
comes up with their own spec, then can I use Open Liberty API spec over here, right? It's
That's different.
well, so it's not different, but if it's a spec level dependency from one spec to another, obviously everybody has to agree that we want to introduce a dependency on a spec. So there's that. When people make the argument that these annotations are harmless and therefore they're fine, I don't agree with that. I sounds like I'm more in line with Roberto's perspective on these types of things. When this came up on the Jakarta side of the fence, my perspective was we should not be adding any annotations from any other framework, tool, spec, whatever, because they're quote unquote harmless. That's not the point. That they shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I agree, David. What's the technical benefit of having those annotations? Because I'm not quite sure we really need them, to be honest, as well.
So I think
and there is one thing, right? So if OSGI wants to bring up their own API, they could copy their API and put their annotations, right? They'll just generate a different jar with their own annotations, and that will be fine. They're completely free to do that.
Well, right? that's where that got hairy is on the Jakarta side. Those API jars will fail the signature test, because the signature tests deliberately check to make sure you're not modifying the APIs in any way by adding any methods, any exceptions, any annotations on those APIs. So on the Jakarta side of the fence, that's where that conversation came up, because it would explicitly fail. You would not be able to certify if you've modified the API jars. We don't have signature tests yet. We probably should have them, in my opinion, but that's for another day. But certainly in our own source code, I wouldn't support adding annotations for other frameworks because they're harmless and useful to those frameworks.
So by the way, they are not completely harmless, right? So for instance, we got an issue on Quarkus because of this.
I also agree that they're not completely harmless, but that's the argument being made, and so.
So it's kind of I think it was discussed on the kind of the major on the MicroProfile mailing list, and so that's kind of the people asking like how to deal with this kind of OSGI thing. I think it's originally I said it's not to accept it. So it's I think it's the kind of this is the kind of experiment to see whether caused any problem. So it's if you think this is a bigger problem and etc. I think we should go to back to the conversation again. I think it's the kind of can't remember. I think it's a couple runtime is use this one. If I remember, I think it's what's it called? A macro was a romance runtime. I think is also trying to use this one, and also the kind of the some OSGI runtime. So I think it's kind of we can revisit this.
I actually think that all of these annotations can be provided in another way to OSGI. So my opinion is let OSGI do it. So if somebody wants to use a spec in OSGI, I think that there is no problem to create a library that will add the OSGI configuration to it, rather than putting it on top of MicroProfile or Jakarta libraries.
Yeah, I think it's good to like match with the decoder thing.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, we're having done kind
Go
of
ahead,
the
Rudy. You
well.
wanted to say some things.
Yeah, maybe some related thing. Is it only the annotations in the spec, or are we also saying that the metadata files are not allowed?
I think it's
Well-
only annotation.
Well, why would you, honestly, why would you have a metadata file for something that is not part of your specification or your prerequisites?
I'm just asking the question because I know there is sometimes, and it is required for some environments to have that metadata so that you have a version so that you can have a resolving of the dependency. So that was my question.
yeah, so some specs also include the metadata files as well. So I was bringing this up for the annotations, but that's a good point. And of course, I think that the decision should be either allow or just disallow everything, right? So not be like allow one thing and don't allow the other.
That depends. Is what is a metadata? Is it kind of is that the bundle the export package, or you are saying
Yes,
the metadata for
yes, that's one example. Yes,
it should surely support like the bundle. So basically, you're saying okay, you export this package at this version and etc. So that's kind of the is because that is a metadata that is used by like the by the other different runtimes and etc. It does not add any dependencies.
I would actually be against any kind of third-party metadata for the simple reason that whoever is working on these specs needs to understand those runtimes. I'm not fluent in OSGI, and I wouldn't know if I need to change anything, if I am doing anything in the spec. And honestly, I think that this is a good enough reason not to include any third-party stuff. There is already enough in the POM files and in the resources. So adding something that you need to understand seems.
I tend to agree, and then there is also one thing, which is where do you draw the line, right? So why USG is okay and not something else is okay. So in the end, you may end up with like 10 different metadata files because like 10 different APIs or specs or runtimes need them, right?
Right. Or my metadata is an XML file, so why can't I include that in there? It's useful to me.
But this can also be dangerous because why will we say no OSGI metadata, but we will maybe, for instance, in the future include JPMS metadata for Java itself?
Then it would be part of the actual specification, right? So if we were going to include JPMS stuff, it would have to be like deliberately specified in the specification. Here's how it works in that scenario, and we'd have to ensure consistency across all the API jars. We would actually have to think about it and make rules.
Anyway, we're like 2 minutes past the hour. I think we don't really have we have some voices in agreement, some voices in disagreement. So I can bring this up to the mailing list and keep the discussion over there. Unless do you think we can all agree at once now that this should be removed? But I think we don't have an agreement. We don't have an agreement on that, right?
Yeah, I disagree.
Okay, so I'll open up a new discussion thread on mailing list so we can keep the discussion over there and bring this up on another call if required. So we run out of time today. So sorry for a couple of extra minutes, just because I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation. Thank you so much for joining, and see each other in next week, I guess.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.